Indian River Connections brings you the first source you can watch for truth on board decisions in Indian River County. The Board Report, where taxpayers and policymakers intersect. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite platform to get notified when we go live on Fridays at 7 p.m. Visit IndianRiverConnections.com for more. Sponsored by Gus Curran's House of Champions.
Well, hello, everyone. I'm Joanne Binford, and this is John Karapi. Welcome to the Board Report brought to you by Indian River Connections. So, John, this week, the Board Report, we're tapping on some really important subjects.
Yeah, it looks like we got Thomas in the back in the green room, and the sheriff budgets being a big topic now. I saw that video of Sheriff Flowers talking about the budget and what kind of money he needs. I was just a little disappointed he wasn't wearing his cowboy hat, but I'll get past that.
Yeah, and then we're going to talk about CSAC too, aren't we?
That's right. Yeah, CSAC. That's a subject that's close to me because I've dealt with a lot of nonprofits and NGOs and stuff of that nature, and I've seen that world, and so it's kind of interesting how this money flows, and it's a little scary at the same time. And I think Thomas does a great job breaking it down.
He really does, and he does a great job researching it and making it understandable for everybody and the viewers so that they understand what's happening with their tax dollars. So this is really going to be a great show for everybody to be tapped into.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's what the Board Report's all about, where taxpayers and policymakers intersect, and that's your taxpayer money going to the sheriff and protecting you at night, like Sheriff Flower said. And we also want to thank Gus Curran's House of Champions, always right there behind us, supporting everything that we do and everything that we stand for at the Board Report and Indian River Connections.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So let's move on to the House of Champions commercial, and then we'll bring on our next guest.
Perfect.
Tired of the same old workout? Come knock out your fitness goals at Gus Curran's House of Champions. Founded in 1996 right here in Vero Beach, Florida, our Hall of Fame trainers will push you to your limits and beyond. Whether you're a beginner or a pro, we have the perfect class for you, including the one-of-a-kind Rock Steady Parkinson's training. So come join the fight and unleash the champion inside you. Give them a call, 772-713-1157, or go to gchouseofchampions.com.
Hey. Hello.
Hey, Kevin. Hey, Thomas.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Something happened to Kevin there.
My mic was off.
Hi, Kevin.
Hello.
What's
so how's
going
it
on?
going?
Haven't seen you for a day, Thomas.
I haven't spoken to you in like a day either.
Thomas?
Oh, hey, good. You owe me $100.
Christy, no going back. So for our viewers who are just logging in, this is Kevin McDonald, who was on the school board for the School District of Indian River County. And we have Thomas Kenny, editor-in-chief of the Sunshine Journal. And we're going to be covering...
Not editing much lately.
So let's do this rundown on Eric Flowers.
Well, you're referring to his budget release message today that came out on YouTube?
Yes.
Yeah, I haven't looked at the budget yet. Just sort of glimpsed at it. The total is $93 million, which is another record he set. Last year it was $83 million. They gave him, I believe, I'd have to go back and look. I wrote about it in the Sunshine Journal at the time, and they cut 20% across the board. And at the time, the administrator, Tikanich, is that how you say his name? County Administrator Tikanich said that in his report that if he keeps asking for this type of money, we're going to probably have to raise taxes. He said we'll have to look at millage increases. He sort of downplayed it, but that basically means to you and I, the taxpayer, if he wants everything he wants and gets it, then we're going to have to raise taxes to fund it. And that's the case. So I haven't looked at it this year at all, what the actual numbers are and how it breaks down. And I'm trying to talk to some people to get that professional eye. Hey, help me to see what I'm looking at here.
Do you remember the number from 2 years ago?
He's broken records every year he's asked. It's not a question of 2 years ago. Last year it was 83. The year before that was in the 70s. What did the guy say? What did the every year he like during the debate in 24, he said, my last budgets, all my budgets were passed with unanimous support. Well, that's true. But he went hard with the county administrator at the time, who was not happy. Like in one of them, he said, yeah, we cut his budget, but he still had the biggest increase in 15 years. Because he's asking for, $7 million. I think last year he asked for like $11 million increase and got almost $5. So, he shoots for the whole 9 yards, and they cut back some of the yardage, and that's how it works. And yeah, and some people are talking, in the big debate in the debate between the candidates, Touchberry and Milo Thornton, with him was, you have all these unfunded hires. So the way a budget with a county sheriff works is he comes in with this number. He goes to the county administrator, they work through it, and the county administrator says, well, we're going to give you this much, and that should fund everything. That's reasonable. This is what we can do. Because last year, even though he got 11 million slashed or whatever, he still got 53% of the general fund of the county. That's a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
And so he goes and does that process with them, that auditing process, and then they come back and say, we'll cut this and we'll approve it. So of course he gets 5-0. But the reality of it is he goes through this rigorous process with the county administrator, and he's saying, we'll make do. Last year he was make do. The year prior to that, he had all these deputies there going, we all need more money. And this year he says in his video that he's got all these like statements from deputies and basically saying the same thing. Instead of showing up to the meeting, because they got a little upset about that when that happened in 23. He has these written statements in the front of his budget and the executive summary from these deputies going, we need more money. So the big debate thing, getting back to that then, is the big debate thing is you have all of these positions that were unfunded. So they get the sheriff gets his money. He gets his 70 whatever million last year, right? That's a pool of cash.
Mm-hmm.
And then basically he can spend, as a constitutional officer, he can spend it. So while he says he's budgeting, he said in the debate, 75% of every dollar in my budget goes to personnel. Yeah, that's the way it's budgeted. But did 75% of every dollar end up with personnel? That's another question.
That's right. That's very true.
So you have these unfunded positions because these people that they asked for funds for have not been hired yet because money got reallocated. So you heard, if you go back and watch that debate, you go up on the Sunshine Journal and pull it, just to give yourself a background on how all this works. These guys are like going, hey, he's got 45 hires here that didn't happen in this year. He had this many in this year. Milo Thornton says when he started his campaign, there were 75 unfunded positions or funded positions yet to be filled. And
right.
So,
and that makes a lot of sense because if you go to the website now, he still has positions up there that are constantly up there. They never seem to be filled.
Yeah. And so I want to find out what that is concerning this year's budget. Because technically the way it's supposed to work is, well, if you don't fund it, then the money should get returned. And sometimes you get this pop and circuit, this two-step where they bring this check in, they give back 4 or 5 million, whatever, and then they come back and take it. And then I don't know how it works exactly. These are all these little things I got to figure out. And since you guys dropped this budget thing on me, I'm like trying to remember how it all works.
Now, the basic problem, of course, is that they don't work in reality. Reality is that you start with, this is the number of dollars we've got. How are we going to allocate it?
Exactly.
If you start off with, if you go to your kids and say, what do you want me to buy? And they come up with their Christmas list, regardless of how much you've got in the bank, you've got a problem, because now you've got to go and rob another bank.
Yeah. Well, and here's the other thing too. Susan Adams brought up a great point. She was a little bit adamant. She's like, hey, do you have a 5-year forecast? Because in this inflationary time, we could have a downturn, a big downturn. You know, this state in the economic downturn of 2008-9 or whatever experienced a huge devaluation of property. And everything's funded on property taxes, so much so that the school system had to put a half a point up there every year because they couldn't fund everything that they were funding because the property values went down so much. And we're still, by the way, voting in that temporary tax. But all that to be said, she's like, hey, do you have a 5-year forecast? And he's like, no. And I believe that was in she did that this past year and the year before. They also, he said the year before, we've got this guy here who's going to help us with budgeting. This guy named Jason. He goes, I have my guy here, Jason. That's the way he introduced him at the meeting in 23. And that guy had since left the office and became a grant writer for the sheriff's department. I think his last name is Holmberg. And I don't even know if he's still there. He probably is. But yeah, all that to say is just that, hey, where's the discipline here in budgeting? I think that's what Susan Adams is getting back at, and rightfully so. Daryl Laura said, look, it's about personnel. It's not about the toys and the cars and the trucks and the machinery and everything and all that stuff. At the end of the day, it's people. You know, so he put his warning out there because they know once they turn this money over to them, they've turned this money over to them.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they should have a plan. And see, like you said, they get to have their budget and then they can spend it any way they want. They can come up to the county commission and say, this is our plan. It really doesn't matter what the plan he gives, because once he gets the money, he can allocate it any way he wants. So what the county commission needs to do is when he does tell them what the plan is, and we were supposed to do it for employees, when he comes back for money and he asks for this same allocations, here we want employee money, they might be able to negotiate those funding and say, hey, look, last time you were complaining about your employees leaving to go to Martin County, but your wages are still too low. So what did you do with all that money? And now you're coming back to us again for the same complaint and you want more money, you know? And we've seen a lot of fancy vehicles coming out of the sheriff's office too.
Well, you know, and the reality of it is that problem of deputies they get really good certifications here. You know, if one thing Sheriff Flowers does well is train his officers. I think they do that great here, and God bless them for doing that. But at the same time, they are competing with these richer counties that pay higher wages. And so you go and get your certifications here that are hard to get or not available to get in those other counties, and you put in your time and then you move on to make better pay. It's understandable, but at the same time, you know, you better start using those allocations. I don't know what type of parameters are on those allocations, but the way it's explained, it's like once he gets the money, he can pretty much, if things come up for whatever reason things come up, we can change it around. And so who knows? Who knows? But I've looked at the budgets. It's 75% of every dollar, as he said. He pulled those 3 quarters out. He had that dollar bill. He pulled the 3 quarters out. And he handed it to his deputy. It was real, very powerful visual. And then he put the other quarter in for, he goes, this is everything else. Well, apparently to some people, they're taking pieces of those quarters, those 3 quarters back and putting it into everything else.
And
Yeah.
we should say to Flowers' defense first.
Great crime rates and everything else.
Yeah, he's doing good things. The money he's spending, we're getting some really fancy stuff. We're getting some great security stuff. So it's not like he's squandering the money, but also this is his department. It's his baby. And so the reason you have oversight is because if it's my department, every year I want huge increases every year because I want to do good things. The desire and the ability to do good things will always outmatch the amount of money available. So the budgeting process is sort of wrong if their accountability comes down to just signing off on the number he requests. They should be going down through the budget and saying, this is what you had last year and you didn't use these pieces. We should take that back and then look at that reduced number. And this is what we got this year. And then let's discuss what incremental stuff you think you need, you want to have, and what part of that do we think we should fund? So it's the way they're doing it is it's a politically difficult way to give oversight.
Well, it is, and the other thing too, to Kevin's point, we saw the sheriff speak last night, and it was really interesting because crime rates are down, and he talked about the most typical crimes, that being burglary, home break-ins, things like that in a community such as ours. We don't have murders every day and all those things, and break-ins in cars and stuff seem to be the problem. He says those have come down even in our communities, and it's a testament to their policing, their understanding of policing, and everything they do as police officers. They're doing exceptional work. I get it, but these increases, $10 million over a budget from last year that was slashed, I believe $7 million ultimately. So 83 went down to like 70 something. I can't remember.
You're smart. What you do is you always ask for a big chunk more than you really need, and you get cut back to what happens to be a big increases over what you had before. So I think that's it's sort of normal to expect that. We just have to have the county has a responsibility to approach it in a way that gives them a little more oversight and a little bit more ability to control that and to proactively guide him rather than reactively approve.
Yeah, I think they can't do that, but I personally feel if he's spending that much money on certifying and good training, those guys should be making as much money as they need to make so that they don't leave this county and go to Martin County. So pay them $10,000 less or $5,000 less than the Martin County.
It's Martin, St. Lucie, Osceola.
Yeah,
wherever.
but they're making a huge difference because when I went to the Martin County employee job site, their corrections and Leo deputies start out at $70,900. That's what they have listed here. And it doesn't say you have to have a certain number of years, where Eric Flowers, when you go to his website, he goes from 0 to 1 year, 2 to 1 to 2 years. He lists it that way. And they start out at $50,000, $50,600, something like that.
Well, and
There's
for
a
all
huge
of that,
difference.
but for all of that, and pardon the pun, he's going to train you up in the ways of the force.
Yeah, but so if we have the best trained, they should be getting paid that money. We're spending all this money training deputies so that they can go work. We're pretty much supplying Martin County and St. Lucie County with the best officers. So why isn't he raising the bar on the salaries? He's got to put that money into those people so they stay.
Well, that's a good question.
And
if you have the fully funded non-hired positions,
right?
I keep thinking unfunded. It's fully funded, not hired positions available. There's money there to do as you say you should do, Joanne. So,
Yeah.
That just remains to be seen for this budget. I haven't
Yeah.
looked at it enough to know.
I mean, if I knew more about it, I'd say, hey, let's take some of that CSAC money and give that to the fire department and the sheriff department, because I'm tired of paying for NGOs.
You really want to go there right now?
Yeah. Why don't we take a commercial break and then we'll come back and move on to CSAC?
Oh boy.
Let's go to a commercial break and we'll be back and we'll talk about the CSAC.
Okay.
Warrior Shield Foundation is here to unite, honor, and provide support for veterans, first responders, and Gold Star family members. The foundation will enable them to find the help they need through direct assistance or by connecting them with our shared vision network. Using data-driven models, we provide solutions that make a long-lasting difference. We, along with our partners, are dedicated to bringing together like-minded groups and individuals who have committed to making a difference in the lives of our hardworking, everyday heroes. We bridge the gap by connecting warriors or their families with the assistance they deserve and require, such as service dogs, wheelchairs, counseling, scholarships, and team-building retreats, to name a few. You can help right now to make a difference for those who have helped and protected us all. Warrior Shield Foundation, selflessly doing for those who need it most.
It's a long way to home, but you won't take the hard road all alone. Just look to your left and look to your right. You were born to fight.
Indian River Connections brings you the first source you can watch for truth on board decisions in Indian River County. The Board Report, where taxpayers and policymakers intersect. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite platform to get notified when we go live on Fridays at 7 p.m. Visit IndianRiverConnections.com for more.
Welcome, everybody.
Hello.
Hey, what's going on, guys?
Hey, it's going good. Where'd you go, Kevin?
I'm here. Alex Thomas.
Oh, that was Thomas. Yeah. Hey, guys, I'm going to step away for a second. John, will you take over?
Yeah, for sure.
Hey,
All right.
John.
What's up, boys?
Hey, John.
How are you?
Good, good. Haven't seen you in a while. I've been a little off the beaten path the last couple episodes, but you guys have done a great job. We appreciate you giving us your time and getting over all these things for the board report. Thomas, get a little bit into the CSAC stuff, and it's something that's close to me because I worked in nonprofits, so I understand a lot about the MPOs and and NGOs and whatnot, how they operate. So give us a little bit of what you found so far.
What I found so far, I don't think it's what we found. It's in terms of finding something new. Nothing really, other than we do know at this point in time that our budget for CSAC, what did it reach? Hold on one second. I have to pull that up because it's a lot of big numbers.
Guys, I'm jumping in with Joanne here. For dummies like me, though,
like you, okay.
What is CSAC?
Children's Services Advisory Council or committee, depending on who you talk to.
And what is their mission?
Their mission is state ordained through the legislature that every county will set up a children's services advisory committee. Okay, and it's to provide support for children, less fortunate, whatever, in the community, food, clothing, all sorts of things, educational stuff, whatever that case may be. And some counties have taxing districts to fund these things. Like Martin County has one. It pulls in about $9 million in revenue annually. St. Lucie has a taxing district. So they have their own public records. They have all, it's sort of like the hospital district is its own taxing district. The school district is its own taxing district. Ours is not. Ours is still managed by the county. Now, Joanne, when she ran in 2022 for commission, after that, one of the votes that was up at the commission was to create a taxing district in Indian River County for CSAC, for the Children's Services Advisory Council. And Joanne, right after losing her election, it had to go through all the municipalities and get support. Indian River Shores, the town of Orchid. And she went to all these places and said, look, this is what's going to happen. This is how these things progress. It's going to raise your taxes, so on and so forth. And it's really not doing what it should be doing, we think, or I think. And she literally, a one-woman campaign killed that thing, killed it from happening, brought it to public attention. And a few of the municipalities said, no, we don't want this. They voted against it moving forward, and it was killed before it reached the commission for vote. What happened in 22 is that they did say that we will raise the input up to 0.25 millage. It's currently 0.125, half of that. Okay. And, you've seen Hope Woodhouse. I've shown things where she's just gone up there. Like, you promised us 0.25 and you haven't done it yet. Well, actually, we promised you up to that. So we're not guaranteeing you anything. And basically, the county commission has held fast at that 0.125. And one of the reasons they're able to do so is because property values are going up like crazy. So this year there was a 15% increase just because of property values, right? So it went from roughly an even 3 mil to 3.4 million. It was like $478,000 increase this year.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a lot of money.
Yeah, that's good.
It is. Is there any receipts for what they do with it?
There is, and you can go on to the county website. You find the Children's Services Advisory Committee. It's under the Community Services or Department of Community or Family Services. Cindy Emerson is the head of it. They produce literature every year. It's a big Canvas spread. It has each NGO that they approve, what they do. Now, one of the things that's happening with CSAC that's really bugging me is that this is primarily for children, correct? So that you have these NGOs now, and you'll see it in the CSAC literature that they'll help an NGO and they'll say, we're helping X amount of children. And then it says, we're also helping X amount of adults. And you're like, well, what's going on here? And some of these adults are getting professional development. So here are people who have careers in the NGO or jobs in the NGO, and the county is paying for their professional development so they can administer the nonprofit work to the kids. But that's not what we're not supposed to be training people to get better in their careers. So like we talked in the last segment, they go to a bigger NGO and make more money because they're now certified in something.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yep.
100%. And so these are crazy things. The other thing we talked about, I wrote an article back in February called the IRC Children's Service Advisory Council needs a Doge style review. And basically it just talks about how many of these people who are on this committee. The committee has two subcommittees. It has a needs assessment committee, and then it has a grant review committee. They're subcommittees. And for Thrive, for example, their executive directors on one subcommittee and their data directors on the other. And here's a organization that's the Substance Awareness is now called Thrive. Mm-hmm. They get hundreds of thousands of dollars annually. Oh. Yeah. And so they're voting themselves money.
And that's
for their organizations.
that number of the people who are in that committee on both sides they have interest in the outcome.
Yeah, there you go. That's a good way to put it. Wow, interest in the outcome.
Michael Marsh from Team Success, he's the executive director, is just applied for $14,000 this year. He's on one of the subcommittees.
Right. So it's
conflicting. It's very
somewhat
conflicting.
incestuous.
It's insane.
In general, whenever you come up with NGO, you have to realize what you're saying is we've got somebody's money. We're going to outsource their money that we've taken from them to somebody else in hopes that they're going to do something good with it.
Yep.
And that's we found with Joe. I mean, Doge has shown it. We've all known it. That to a large extension, some of these people are well-meaning and do some good things, but it's really it's money and efforts that are completely out of our control. As the taxpayers, you're taking
absolutely
money.
Right.
You're going out and you're hiring a third party, and you've lost control of it. You've also lost accountability and responsibility, not only for the money but also for the outcomes.
Yeah, I think it's and then when you hear stories about county commissioners really have no idea what's going on with all this, it's it's par for the course, I guess, but it's not comforting to know.
I think they're becoming aware of it, though. There's starting to be a movement afoot too, and there may be more on that later. But there's starting to be a movement where, hey, you guys, hello, everybody on that committee should be independent of these NGOs, so they can make honest assessments. If you're in an NGO that wants, I don't say don't do nonprofit. If you're in a nonprofit, but your nonprofit's not asking CSAC, the CSAC committee for money, go ahead and be on the committee. But if you're directly involved, what do you think this is?
Doesn't make any sense.
Very conflicting.
It's a conflict of interest, 100%. And this is going on all over the state, especially and that's why they want these taxing districts, because now what? They have total control. They are away from the commission. Here, our commission, our elected representatives, not bureaucrats, have control of the money. They came up, they had $128,000 that wasn't spent last year for whatever reason. I don't remember what it was. I think one of the, through a combination of things, they ended up with $128,000 over. So that's taxpayer dollars, correct? Yep. And Hope Woodhouse is like, well, we should be able to have that and then reallocate it. No, it goes back to the commission, to the general fund. It's not your money. A committee never has power to spend your money. Never. The committees at the end of the day make recommendations to the commissioner, and then the commissioners are the ultimate authority on how it's spent. They could say, hey, do all of these things. They could give you 10 ways to spend it, one committee, which is basically what CSAC does. They give you hundreds of ways to spend it. And they could go to each one and say, we'll do that one and not this one. We'll do that one and not this one. It's their authority. It's not CSAC's authority. It's not the committee's authority ever.
Yeah. So then if they did end up with their own taxing district, then we end up with who makes that decision is how many seats that actually are elected to oversee this, like the hospital district. How does that all work anyways?
That's exactly what would happen. You're absolutely right, Michael.
And the hospital district's a good example of how they've become somewhat useless for their original purpose, and they're no longer overseeing the hospital per se. They're giving away money to other efforts and other things that the monster thrives and survives even after the enemy's been killed.
Right. And so you look at an organization like the Learning Alliance. They get CSAC dollars at about $400,000, $450,000 annually. For the last 3 years, it's about $450,000. Okay. They also get money from the hospital district. So what's a reading organization getting money from a taxing district whose focus is on surgeries and hospital care?
Right. It makes no sense.
Well, the corollary
why is the county giving money to an organization like the Learning Alliance, who's giving the money to the school district? Why is the county not giving the money to the school district to do the job that, by and large, they're getting pretty successful at doing?
Because the school district takes more in tax money than the county does.
Oh, yeah. Well, not that the school district needs the money, but the Learning Alliance is still giving the money from the CSAC. So they're getting that extra money. It's circular. It's not going directly. And I think that Dr. Moore would be glad to have the money directly and be in control of it.
Well, you know, he asked me one time, he said, why are you against Learning Alliance? I'm not against what they do.
No.
I don't mind what they do at all. I think it's, you know, it's probably a help somewhere. But the reality of it is like, I don't like them taking money and being a pass through to you.
Exactly. That's all it is. That's all they are. It's all they've ever been.
I should have more of a say. Actually, you know, I don't believe tax dollars personally should be used in this way with NGOs.
Not. Yeah.
I think you should give the $3 million back to the 3.4 or whatever it is annually back to the people, and the people should choose their charities accordingly.
Exactly. I mean, when I was with the Salvation Army for 10 years, I mean, I was the face of the organization in this town, and I never got any taxpayer money. I mean, I'm a nonprofit in the county, and I wasn't getting any money for that. We never looked to get anything from those organizations ever. You know, we just got money from private individuals, you know, and foundations, but nothing that was taxpayer money.
And the other side of this too is like if you go back to that 22 decision, I think it was in 22, like a November, when they said they were going to raise up to 0.25, they also expanded the definition of what the Children's Service Advisory Council will do. So at one point in time, it's pretty much basic health needs, food, clothing, those types of things. And over the years, it's expanded out. Now you got mental health. Now you got this. Now, before you know it, you got kickball societies in there, and everything else is part of like the overall health of a kid is that they should have a perfect lifestyle if it can't be provided at home.
Bingo. Or even if it can be.
Yeah, even if it can be. You know, there's a whole question of some of these organizations that work with sailing and stuff like that get funding over there, and because they deal with a class of people that actually have money to do sailing, but yet here our government's paying for it.
Yeah. Joanne's joining us again. I'll bring her back on, but first I want to mention our sponsor for the Connecting People and Places podcast is Voices for Children of Okeechobee and the Treasure Coast. And they have an event coming up in June, I believe, or was it July, John? Correct me if I'm wrong. July 19th, I believe, right? Yeah. And it's Teach a Kid to Fish or Teach a Child to Fish. It'll be at Riverside Park at 9 a.m. I think it's over at 11. But we'll be there. One of us will be there to collect school supplies for classrooms across our country, across our county, not the country. And so if you're available and you want your kid to learn how to fish, or if you want to drop off some school supplies, you want to see what Voices for Children's about or what we're about, we'll be down there at Riverside Park underneath one of the pavilions, I think. I don't know.
The pavilion and the bridge, yeah.
I've got a little ad from Lenka we'll play, and then we'll bring Joanne on when we come back.
Voices for Children of Okeechobee and the Treasure Coast is hosting a Teach a Child to Fish Day at Riverside Park on July 19th from 9 to 11 a.m.
It's not just a fun day on the water, is it, Jake? I mean, there is an educational factor.
Teaching a child to fish builds patience, confidence, and focus while fostering a deep connection with nature, family bonding, and respect for the environment.
It's a hands-on way to develop life skills, relieve stress, and a fun day on the water.
So, if you can join us on July 19th, we would love to see you there, and if you can lend a hand, we can use it. We are welcoming volunteers to help set up, help clean up, and of course, mentor these children on how to catch the big one.
And what better way for Indian River Connections to team up with another local organization to help teachers in underserved classrooms around the county? We will be there on July 19th collecting supplies for our Stock the Classroom supply drive. It's important to keep classrooms stocked all year long so every student has the tools they need to learn and succeed. When supplies run low, teachers often pay out of pocket. That's where we can come together to lighten that load and support our teachers and students.
Wow, 2 great causes for the price of one. So, let me get this right. You're telling me one of our viewers right now can come to Riverside Park on that Saturday morning and learn to fish and drop off school supplies to help local classrooms.
Oh, you're a quick one, Jake. That's right. Saturday, July 19th, 9 a.m., and if you can help out or want more information, email Patrice at pbose@voicesforchildren.otc.org or comment below, and we'll make sure she gets the message.
Cut.
How did I do? Was I good?
Whatever, dude. Just be chill. You weren't bad, I guess. Well, it was fun while it lasted. Nice working with y'all.
I think Jake is making a move on Lanko's unpaid job.
He's got the best tattoo sleeve ever.
Yeah. Welcome back, Joanne.
Hey, how are you guys? This is a good subject, the CSAC committee.
Yeah, it's
We probably wouldn't be discussing it without what you did in 22. I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, because people don't realize that once it becomes a trust, you have to vote it in as a trust. They put it on the ballot, and it's 75 words to describe something for children. So everybody's going to get on the bandwagon and vote for it without realizing it. And the worst thing about that trust was it was for a 12-year period with 3 increased millage rates that you would not vote on throughout that 12-year period. And that's just insane when it comes to your tax dollars. And you can see now how it's been increasing without it being a trust, that we're already concerned about what's happening.
So you look at the numbers. I had them up just a second ago. 2022-23, it was $2,071,000. 23-24, $2.9 million.
Wow.
Last year, $3 million. 25-26, the projected forecast $3,479,000. That's in 3 years a $1.4 million growth. By the way, that's all based on property value increases, not increase in the millage rate. Now, during this time, they've asked for millage increases. Hope Woodhouse is like, you should be already up to 0.25. You promised, blah, 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 blah. And I credit the commissioners. They've been hardliners on raising that millage rate. They don't want to do it. And I thank them for that. But at the same time, because values are going up for our property so much, they're getting the increase anyway at about a 10 to 12, 15% clip annually.
Mm-hmm.
And the big problem in all of this is seldom to never is there a goal, is there a strategy behind the goal, and then a measure to determine, is this actually accomplishing the goal? How is this doing? How is the money? How are the efforts? How are they progressing towards what the original goal is? If you don't have a goal and you don't have a measure, you can succeed forever. And that's sort of how they function.
Well, with the CSAC, this is about how thick it used to be. Okay. I printed it out.
Oh my gosh.
There's so many sections. They have taken it to the point where we're really supposed to be raising our kids, and that's not what the CSAC is about. We're not supposed to be raising the kids. They've gone the Children's Services Advisory Committee. I know it's so weird to try to show you. That's one section. I mean, it's got population demographics. Look at all of this data that they're putting into this to create this project that when they come up to the county commission, because the county commission is always impressed with your data, and they're calling all these things out, and it's like, look, we have the migrant children's services, is that what it's called,
that's a Christian organization, yeah, and they do like charter schools.
They do
if that's the one I'm thinking of.
This is where is it? Redland Migrant
Yeah, that's the one.
Association.
They do
This
charter
is-
private schools. Yeah.
Right,
For
but
migrants.
they are not raising these kids to be first language Americans. They're teaching
Well,
them in Spanish, as you know.
it's like a dual language program, but I can tell you right now, that's just not here. That's all over the state. That's a big
organization.
nonprofit organization. I think you go to the website, they're in multiple states, if I'm not incorrect. They're definitely in multiple counties all over this state.
Well,
they make a lot of money, and so they're coming in and they're pilfering CSAC funds.
Mm-hmm.
And CSAC was meant for local nonprofits to do local work in the counties. And so you got these people coming across borders of counties, and they're funding their big organizations on the backs of all these individual county agencies.
Right, where they're opening up like little extensions of themselves in these little counties, and they're making money off of this. And I can guarantee you, if you go to this school, you will find kids learning in their first language, which is the language of their parents where they came over. And what I also wonder is, I don't trust NGOs anymore after Doge. And I'm like, okay, so how many, this focuses on migrant farm families, if you go to the website, and how many of those kids are legal, or their parents are legal? So they're using our tax dollars, and we could be, I'm just saying, who's doing the research, who's doing the accountability work to look into all of this?
I think your school's in Fellsmere, correct?
Yes, they have a location in Fellsmere. So I'm like, look, I don't have anything about helping people out, but that's
you're talking to RCMA.
Yes,
RCMA. Yeah, that closed down. But they were talking about building a new one off of 60.
So then who are we funding then? Because
they're asking for money. Trust me on that.
Yeah, we're sending them money. They're getting money. Like right here, it says $75,500 for the child care and $50,000 for the CCEP.
What year is that one? Is that 24, 25?
This is 2024, 2025.
So that was already approved.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was.
Now I know there's other locations besides Fellsmere in the county, but
they're in multiple counties. They're huge.
Yeah, well, there's I think another one on 510 and maybe one down in actual Waybasso or Gifford, but there was something going around. I think Vero News posted it about 7 months ago that they were looking for funding to build a new facility or take over a facility somewhere off of 60, which I'm not very familiar with what it looked like, but it was multiple buildings, and it was like $40 million or something like that. And it was just, and that's what got me digging. And you're right. Like, this isn't a program that's helping migrant families assimilate. It's catering to a particular sect that is not making an effort to assimilate. Right. And like you said, they're pilfering our tax dollars that are supposed to be going to local initiatives,
very local charities, and also those that are doing startups and trying to innovate to really super serve the community. TLA, for Learning Alliance, at one point in time, they raised so much money and they would spend it all on the schools. So their budget to the schools like $3.2 million a year. But they got $20 million one year, and the county still gave them $435,000. Yeah. So they had an income of $19.8 million on $23 million worth of revenue.
Mm-hmm.
And you're looking at this and you're going, why are you giving them $435,000 of my money? And then they're going over to the hospital district, who's also expanded the definition of coverage, because now apparently education is directly related to mental health. I would suppose it is, but you're not there it's not a surgical procedure. And they're giving them another $155,000.
Mm-hmm.
And that's because they have money and they have to figure out where to go with the money. And they're not doing their original task. So now they're a funding source.
That's true. Yeah.
Yep.
But Joanne has the literature there, Joanne. They talk about the touch points. We had 18,000 touch points or something along those lines, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so okay, so 3.4 million divided by 18,000 is like $200 a touch point. A touch point could be a phone call.
Yeah, that's what
A text is a touch point.
I know. I'm like, I
You
don't
doing
care.
well today? Hey, I had a touch point. That was a $200 text.
Yeah, they give you like all these numbers and stuff, the total population and demographics. I'm like, look, when constitutionally, when it says to look for the well-being of the people, it doesn't mean you're going to be the hospital.
Promote the general welfare, not
right.
Not pay
exactly.
for it.
Now, they've got the hospital, they've got births by birth rate. Why are we doing all of this? You know?
Well, and the other, yeah,
it just blows my mind.
Well, the other side of this is, you know, when you went out and stopped it from becoming a taxing district, they realized, I think a lot of people realized who are in CSAC itself. I don't know about the commissioners too much. The commissioners just saw that this wasn't going to happen, so they went along with what you championed. But they realized in CSAC, we have to get our ducks in a row. And then shortly after that vote for the 0.25, the following year, they hired Emerson at 80 grand a year to oversee this. And now you've got all this stuff that you're referring to here, these marketing materials and the evidences and organization of data. And they've got all these studies they refer to from the last 30 years. Some of it is such outdated sociology. I mean, it makes you laugh when you read it, because I've read some of it and you're just like, huh? It comes from like 1990 sociology college courses and different things. And it's all this gobbledygook to say this, you know, just to justify expanding definitions of what it means to help a child and then ask for the money.
Yeah. And how many events do you see all of these NGOs doing to raise their own funds? How many, if you're a nonprofit and you want to raise money and awareness, you have a lot of events. You bring people out and you gain their trust and you show them what you've done. You give them, testimonies or whatever it is. But I hardly see these events. There's several NGOs out there that I do see a lot of, and I'm like, go for it. Kudos. You are getting out there in the public. But a lot of these people on this list, these organizations, you don't see trying to raise money. I mean, I can see some here and I could name some, like the that I know. We've got I'm gonna name this one right here, which is the Crossover Mission. They've done stuff to raise money, and they're doing a good job. So I think people would be more inclined to give their money to NGOs that are really showing that they're doing the work. Learning Alliance, I always have an issue with that because they're so involved with the school district. And our school district, you guys know, they're still graduating, but they've lowered the expectations so that we can be an A school. Well, basically.
The A school is based on an average. It's not based on an A.
Yeah, it's so our kids aren't getting smarter. They're graduating, but they're not getting smarter. And Learning Alliance has gotten a lot of our money. And some of these other places are getting a lot of money. Just Teen for Tykes, when I think of a lot of things that they do.
Teen for Tykes, by the way, has a member on one of the subcommittees.
Yeah, so how can you ever not get funded?
I can't remember their name.
Wasn't the original idea that this is going to fund startups and help small organizations develop? And if you continually have to water that plant, it's never going to stand alone and function on its own. And that should be the idea.
Well, what they're saying is if you continue to water that plant, it's going to bear fruit.
Or it's going to drown.
Because your kids aren't going to end up in jail. But if you ask me, if you look at the numbers, I think we've had more crime in Indian River County over the years, and kids are growing up. So what's happening? We've got more homeless people here. Our graduation rates, we've talked about it. It's a percentage. It's not it's not actually
96% at the moment.
Yeah, it's not.
And
it's
so
not
one thing, bearing fruit is not a measurable result.
It's not.
You planted tree. I had a lemon tree out here. It finally just died. Last couple of years, you put out 2 or 3. Yeah, it was bearing fruit. It was dying. But there's no way to, as long as it's got fruit, that means it's okay. Let's give it some more money. And that's what they're doing. They're not putting any stakes in the ground because they don't know who wants to be measured. First you want to get money, then you want to, it's like any organization, like the government, where you can't be fired. Therefore, you're going to put out the amount of effort that you seem to be inspired to put out at the time, and whatever you do has to be good enough. And that's the name of the game here. There's no reason to excel. No reason to forget about excel. There's no reason to eliminate the need for yourself if your money is going to keep coming in and there's no measure against it.
I always go back to that meeting. It was a couple of years ago with Doug DeMuth, and they were asking for CSAC's asking for money. Doug DeMuth is he's the financial guy on the CSAC committee. He's very good. He's very straightforward, nuts and bolts. And one organization was asking for $100,000, and he's like, "Well, they just hired a development director at $180,000." So we're basically paying this guy's salary to go out and raise money.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
More than half of the guy's salary to go out and raise money. And, and I think that was the same meeting that Hope Woodhouse got up there and said, our youth aren't skilled and we can't find good help at Johns Island.
I remember that. That.
The same meeting. And you're just like,
why don't we get money to Johns Island and they can train people?
Yeah, I'll tell you what, man. I'll come over there and serve you some vino, okay?
So I made the comment in communications earlier. With our median household income in this county is substantially lower in other counties, along with all the other KPIs like deputy pay and stuff like that. I have my own theory. What is your theory on that? With considering the wealth in this county, and I can elaborate more, but with the pay difference and the income, household income, why is Indian River County different from comparable counties?
Because the jobs aren't here.
The jobs aren't here.
I mean, the skilled. That's it. It's about business. It's about economics. It's the reality of economics. It's hard to stay here.
Kevin, what do you think?
Well, if you look at the numbers, and I've looked at some of them in the past because I live on this side of the water, and I'm one of those old people who are on the side of the water who retired or semi-retired or getting near their end of their career. That's going to, you got a lot of older people who, of course, are at a higher pay level at that point or retired. That raises up the average a lot. If you chop off the higher sections of the curve and you measure the median section of the curve and look at who the tail is, you get a better picture of this is a farming community.
So,
agricultural town.
This is a storage unit community.
Yeah. Well, here's my
car washes.
In doing what we do with our postcard, I've come to notice that the household income in 32963 is unrecognizably low. And when I mean low, I mean lower than you'll find in some other districts around the county or other mailing routes, because that's how we look at it. And we can filter down household income. And the only thing I can think of is those areas, like you said, Kevin, are retired. And a lot of those, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not a finance guy, but maybe a lot of that asset over there is in trust funds or investments. In the $20,000 income I see from a house in Johns Island is just the interest on something.
Or it's Social Security check.
Or it's your trust paying you.
It's
trust paying you your spendable income.
Yeah, are you going to take 401k? For me, it's
what they show is just Social Security. They don't show their dividends and all that stuff. It doesn't show on it because it isn't a trust. 100%.
With a county with so much money, I mean, obviously, income is earned income. I guess depends on who you ask. But I guess that could throw off some of these numbers when you're looking at comparing other counties' deputy pay or household income compared to city workers' pay and county. And I found that odd when we were doing our research, that a lot of the income over there is a lot lower than income out here in the sticks.
It's a lot lower than you anticipated, that's for sure.
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
But look at who the employers are too. If you go up to Melbourne, you've got a number of large employers. Here, our employers are. It's
the school district.
The school district is really the number one, and then you've got the counties sort of up there. But you've got Piper is the largest.
Piper's the largest private employer, and the only other one than Publix over 1,000.
Right, Publix and Piper, and really you don't have a lot of other big businesses, a lot of other good income areas. A lot of the people here are service-related people. I just had somebody out here helping me get my sprinklers working again, and a lot of people like that they're earning a nice living, but they're not getting rich. They're not working from a big company. We don't have a big tower down the street where executives are sitting and getting paid. So it's not the framework of it. It's really sort of a vacation town. If you go up to they call the Vero Beach the Hamptons of Florida. If you go out to the Hamptons in New York, you've got shop owners, you've got farmers, you get restaurant people, and then you've got billionaires. But they're not earning money, and they're not part of that measurable community. And so it's the same thing here. We're a retirement vacation community, and so the finances are different.
So I think we need better data collection would help, I think, in some sections. But so what's next for CSAC?
Well, they're going to try and get this 3.4 million allocation done. I know they're getting ready to. There's a meeting coming up in a few days on where they sit and they just talk about all the different awards. I've been trying to get a hold of when that is. I think it's on the 25th, and then there's another one on the 27th, and those are open to the public.
And when is the vote to increase the millage?
The vote to increase, they don't increase the millage. Okay. The millage is something that the county commissioner would do. They, like I said, it's up to 0.25. The commission then can, they every year they come request funding, and last year they tried to get them to push it up. They had meetings at CSAC commission. The superintendent's on there. The sheriff is on there. These people are required to be on there by the state. And the superintendent asked for the most rapid progressive increase to get to that 0.25 out of all the suggestions. And in the end, the commissioners, like they said, well, you guys are going to get 12% or whatever, but just based on property values. So we're not going to give you any of these other ideas on how to increase the rate. We're just going to want you to. And they've been doing that. So it's been good right now. Just like with the sheriff, it's been good because property values are going up. But what happens if things start to slide or go down, or we have one of these recessions? Trump's all great and everything, but people they like when progressives are in charge because they know government's always going to be funded.
Yeah. So speaking of the sheriff's budget, when do we find out how that turns out?
That'll be July, sometime in July. Last year it was July 10th was when that went down.
That's right, yeah.
So this year it'll probably be sometime after the 4th. As you saw in that video, Mike, that the sheriff released on YouTube today, he's talking about getting in front of homeowners associations. I'm the president of the Republican Club of Indian River. He's going to speak. And I want my, membership to just ask him pointed questions about his budget because I think it's fair. And he believes in what he's doing, and he's got a really good record for crime rates and all these different things that they do.
Well, he's welcome on the board report. If he'll bless us with his presence, we should extend that invite. If we haven't already, I'm not sure. Joanne might have already.
He says in that video, reach out to Natasha Jenkins. I have her email, and they'll be happy to probably come
Did
on.
you
here and
have?
talk to
I
you.
know Joanne is all about the law enforcement. She was talking to Sheriff Mack again today. So, if you haven't seen it, catch
Yeah, that
Joanne's
was a
interview. Yeah,
that was a good interview.
yeah,
Did
that
you?
was live, right?
Yeah, it was live, so
Live
it
with
was a
Sheriff
really
Mack.
good interview.
Yeah.
Yeah, he doesn't like to do long interviews because he has a lot of interviews that he does. So we were going a little long, but I was trying to hit some of the key points,
Yeah.
and he was just like, "Oh, I think I was wearing him out."
I got to ask John Karapi a question because he seems he's thinking over there. And hey, John, who's going to go to the Stanley Cup?
Oh man,
Are you talking hockey?
the Panthers look good. I mean,
Panthers are great, don't they?
Yeah, they look good. I mean, they stepped it up. Carolina was sitting around for a while, so that's why they're a little soft right now. But yeah, it's pretty impressive.
I don't think they're going to get any harder.
No. Yeah.
So, guys, I have to ask you all a question. I got something in the mail, and you know how Sebastian went from their trash pickup now is they all have to pay for trash pickup? Well, that's happening in Indian River County. Did you guys get that letter in the mail?
Yeah, they're giving us all new cans.
I already paid for it. It's a good thing for me because they'll actually pick up yard waste. Out where I'm at, they won't pick up any yard waste. It's only a can full, but still.
Yeah.
Like out here, I have to dispose of yard waste on our own, and it's either transport it to somewhere, either to the landfill or to a transfer station. And transfer stations will only take it if it's under 2 inches round. So tree branch, forget about it.
2 inches round?
Yep. And if it's hardwood, it can't be any more than 2 inches. And so for people
Size
out here,
matters.
yeah. So but for like people out here in unincorporated, not all unincorporated doesn't get waste, yard waste, but out here we don't get the yard waste. So you have to either transport it across the highway, which is dangerous, or burn it, which is just as dangerous. It's kind of ridiculous, but
you don't have neighbors' yards that you can throw it on?
yeah. Sadly,
they're 5 acres away.
Well, sadly,
But
I
it's
didn't have
nighttime.
neighbors. 10 years ago when we came out here, we didn't have neighbors, but now I've got neighbors on every side of me. So times are changing out here too, and soon there'll be those little what do we call them, 15-minute villages popping up everywhere. But
so Mike, do you know who the finalists are of the city manager election that's going to happen here June 10 to 12 over there?
I have no idea. I know there was a big meeting, and I wish we had a good contact for out here because I can't go to the meetings.
Why can't you go? You're just not
got
available. They're usually in the
3
day.
kids and a wife that they're wondering where the hell I'm at right now.
I'm in the garage, hon.
Yeah.
The day meetings are hard, you know?
Yeah.
You know, Joanne, since you mentioned budgets, we should do a quick call out about the school budget because that's coming up. They're working on that now. Spoke to the CFO, and he's working on it, waiting to get numbers from the state. But one of the things that we got to keep them aware of is that the student population continues to shrink. And so
enrollment's declining.
Enrollment is declining. So at some point, the budget can't keep increasing
right
when enrollment is declining. And it's a tough business situation. Fortunately, they've got a very talented turnaround artist on the board. And I hope he applies some of that skill because, you know, when your customer base is shrinking and you got a too much bloat, you know, you got to bite the bullet and be a little tighter with the budget. So, yeah, and because of the way that things function, they're a government, they're not a business, although their customers are free to leave, but somebody's got to help them decide to bite the bullet because they're not going to do that on their own. No reason they would. We have to help them bite the bullet.
I know where they can find an extra 150 grand if we can just get a judge to sign off on it.
Well, they could start a refuse collection business.
As Susan Mahill said, be done with this mess. Be done with this mess. Susan Mahill said, be done with this mess.
Be done with this
I
mess.
was waiting for a window. I was waiting for the window. That's all I got for tonight, guys. If you guys have anything else,
oh my gosh, with this mess. Be done with this mess.
You just have to be aware, though. By the way, there's just one thing about all this budget stuff is Kevin and I were talking offline about Mr. Dyer saying, "Well, the state's taking our money away," and you have to realize that the money belongs to the citizens, and the citizens make up the state. We have a constitution that says, "Yeah, we'll provide a public school system," but at the end of the day, this tax dollar belongs to the citizen. So it's not the state. We voted for this. We asked for school choice. 75% of it is still funded by taxes. 25% that the state brings in, which is also taxes, business taxes otherwise, is where that money's coming from. It's not state money. It's our money.
Right.
And you'll see him use this narrative over and over again. It started with that article in Vero News that came out about 7 weeks ago. Is that commentary with Terry and Peggy, and they're talking about, school choice is ruining the public school system, blah, blah, blah. And they're going on and on about it and how the budgets are getting tighter, like Kevin pointed out. And ever since then, he's been saying the state is taking our money. And he's talking about how families that have never used the public school system are getting these scholarships. Well, those families have always been paying into the public school system and paying for private school. And this is the one opportunity why they have kids in a school, because they don't get to do this once they come out of school. They're taking the money to help pay for these schools that they're sending their kids to. It's totally legit.
And the whole point is these schools don't exist to keep the institution alive and to keep funding administrators and teachers to have a job as much as we want them to have a job and want them to be successful. But the schools exist for the benefit of educating the children of our parents. And so the money that we set aside is for the benefit of the parents to provide for and educate their children. The children belong to the parents, and the responsibility and the results are for that family. So the state is setting aside money in order to fund in whatever best way is possible. And the problem we have, as you see, we have with a school district, you have 5 people who actually have a little bit of insight and control of it. And the superintendent and the administrators have most of the control of it, but the parents have very little control of it. And the more you disassociate measurement and control from the people who are making the choices, the less efficient it is. So what we've got now is a system that's competitive, that parents can say, I'm going to look at alternatives, and whichever alternative is going to provide the best solution for my child, that's the alternative I'm going to choose. And so whether the board members currently on the dais like it or not, it is a competition, it's a business, and they have to compete for those parents and for their students. And they can complain all they like about where the money's going, but they got to shut up and start making sure that they're competing well, or readjust their budget, because and they've got the unfortunate situation where they have to take whoever wants to come. Private schools, even home schools, they can all selectively choose who they're going to take. So obviously, the parents who are more involved, the students who may be better, everyone who cares more about education are going to tend to filter towards alternatives because they can. And so the school district has to be given some grace for the fact that they've got, the less than ideal population of students, but they need to focus on them. They
also have the maximum budget potential because it's based on property taxes on property that's worth $32 billion.
Right.
So it comes out to like $400 million in budget, or right, even more.
$400 million last year.
Yeah, it's going to be more this year.
Potentially. That's a good question. If people don't start saying it can't be more, then it will be more. I know they're cutting back. They've got cut back in students. They're cutting back proportionally in the number of teachers they've got, or fewer students. So they're going to be cutting back in that. But the reality is, I don't think you're going to see that $400 million number cut back.
Well, Kevin, you just made such a great thing about the constitutionality of school choice, because at the end of the day, the funds, the citizens' funds, the taxpayer funds are still funding public education. The public, though, is choosing how that education is going to work. And that's the beauty of what you said. It's just brilliant.
It's not about public education. And there's a group of people that call themselves champions of public education. They're champions of a public institution.
It's about educating our public at the young age that they are.
It's about the buildings and the employees. It's not about the students. We need to be champions for students. And if a student goes down the street to a private school or a home school, and if he scores 10 or 15 points better on his reading and his math, then send them all there. Don't keep that public institution if the public institution isn't hitting the goals. And by goodness, parents should, and I have the right to try and find the best alternative, best educational alternative for their children to get the best educated. And if it's not in a public institution, then God bless them wherever they are. Don't fight them over it. Don't get mad at a parent because they want better education for their kids.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Well, it almost sounds like the schools should have an opportunity with the students leaving to cut down some of that top management that they're paying hundreds and 90,000 salaries, $100,000 salary. Cut those back, make the classrooms smaller, and bring more teachers in. I'm in favor for smaller classrooms. I think if you have fewer kids in your classroom, you have the ability to teach better because you have less disruptions and you can focus more on the subject that matter in the classroom. These classrooms, to me, are large, and our kids these days can be very unruly. And I think it would be a nice experiment to try to go back to smaller classrooms and change the budget. You won't need as many disciplinary people and staff, or it seems like the school district is just so top heavy. And
to a little bit to Moore's credit, he has been trimming a couple of people on the staff. I think he took $1 million out of the staff budget last year, trimming a little bit. He's going to trim out of the teachers budget. But the real question is, if you cut back 30 or 40 teachers and a couple of admins, now you're talking about several millions of dollars. There's other sunk costs that they can't easily cut back. But is the budget going to go up when they're cutting back on the number of people and cutting back on some of their costs? That's yet to be seen. But we should start expecting, because we've fallen year after year after year, but the budget the spend goes up year after year after year, and we should start expecting Mr. Dyer, who's an expert at this, should start putting his nose to the grindstone, saying, we need to resize or redesign this business for the competitive situation that we've got. Mm-hmm. And it may be looking at we got to redesign the school for 12,000 students, because we got close to that, and we're going to have that. Don't try and hold on to what you've got. Don't complain. Don't complain about the customers that went down the street. Start focusing on the customers who remain and serving them the way they need to, or sizing yourselves for what they need.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, something we didn't get to is grades did go up this year.
Particularly in reading. We talked last year, it was a 63 for English language arts at third grade. It's a 69 this year. The preliminary release of the assessments came out, and so kudos to them. I personally think, I'll tell anyone this, from a guy who's as an educator, Dr. Moore that's what he does best. He's just an educator. He loves to educate kids. He gets really passionate about it. I've said it on here before. He gets choked up when he talks about it. He loves seeing kids succeed in education, and I think that's happening. There are other things we could talk about that would say, gosh, I wish he'd do this or that, and we'll do that for another time. But overall, the grades are going up, and I want to be able to get to some of these, get down in the weeds of that once they release them through the FLDOE, so we can see how the schools did individually and things like that.
I think that would be great, because my daughter in the dual enrollment program, she came home the other day with information I haven't seen officially, but supposedly, again, that dual enrollment program had average breaking scores when it came to their science and their math testing, I believe. And
average as in what?
They do their what is it? Their FAST. Is it FAST?
Yes, FAST.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So the dual enrollment, compared to the other schools in that same grade, supposedly they're higher than average, and their teachers told them it's looking like they're higher than average across the state. So that's pretty good news for that dual enrollment program, the dual language program. So And
I was
Mr.
trying to send
E,
the still to the chat, and it just my
What school was that?
that's
Fellsmere.
Fellsmere. That's
Oh,
Fellsmere.
that's
Ellesmere
good.
has been lower in the past.
And Mr. E is predicting, and he made this prediction in front of Dr. Moore last night, that this would be the first time that Fellsmere is potentially going to be an A school back to back 2 years in a row. So things are looking pretty good in Fellsmere. It's that retention, though, and them pushing for that 6th grade. I was going to try and wrap it up, but them pushing for that 6th grade, I think it fits for some special needs students. I don't think it's a great idea for mainstream students, because a smaller 6th grade embedded with an elementary school, I think they're going to miss out on some opportunity that's made available. The opportunities are made available, but it'll be more resistance for those families out there to take advantage of those things, like the sports, to travel to a different school to do different programs. It's going to be more resistance on already a culture that will take the path of least resistance.
Well, it's funny because Fellsmere is one of the highest respondents to having the 6th grade too. And so, that's
listen, I don't know how
they've been touting that at
they
meetings.
assumed,
Fellsmere, and I can't remember the other school.
So they encouraged
one of the magnets.
I think it was Treasure Coast, if I'm not mistaken.
Not Treasure, no, it was one of the magnets. So it was either, I think it might have been Liberty or
maybe
Rosewood. That was
now they did encourage
the two highest are Fellsmere and Liberty, or one of the magnets.
They did encourage every 5th grader to choose that they were going to go to Fellsmere, even if they weren't done making their decision yet. So for us, they still have Corbin down as going to Fellsmere, but for the school choice, he's already picked. We've already decided on Sebastian. So, but that's all I got for tonight. Thank you guys again. We were pushing an hour and 20 minutes. A great conversation. I wish we could talk about more exciting stuff, but our money, that's what we're here for. And I think you guys do a great job of bringing us the information, and Joanne does a great job of getting it from you. So if you don't have anything else, Joanne?
No, we're good. Let's close it out. Thank you, Thomas, for joining us again. And Kevin McDonald, thank you so much. We love having you guys on board.
Definitely.
And,
thank you, guys.
Yeah. So
thanks,
thank
guys.
you, everyone. Yep. And
thank
you, everyone, for joining us today at the Board Report, brought to you by Indian River Connections, where you get local news every Friday at 7 p.m. So please visit IndianRiverConnections.com to get more news from our partner podcasters at TGI Now, To The Point Podcast, Binford Chronicles, and the Connecting People and Places podcast. And don't forget to visit Thomas Augustus Substack. Did I say that right?
You did.
All right. Thomas Augustus Substack for all our local news. And we'll see Kevin McDonald back at the next Board Report.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Indian River Connections brings you the first source you can watch for truth on board decisions in Indian River County. The Board Report, where taxpayers and policymakers intersect. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite platform to get notified when we go live on Fridays at 7 p.m. Visit IndianRiverConnections.com for more. Sponsored by Gus Curran's House of Champions.